Hello everyone, how y'all doing today? Today I just wanted to make a short video about the Bob Lazar story. And this is just a short video about what his claims were and his time that he spent at S4. So in 1989, Bob Lazar claimed that he worked for S1, I think, or S4, I think it was S4, a military installment in Roswell, New Mexico. And he claimed that he was hired as a third party to reverse engineer a UFO. And he claimed they had 9 crafts there and that they hired him to get an out of the box thinker because he was just a civilian. He had no military background. And so he got hired by Los Alamos base there, Air Force Base, and he claimed that he was shown a craft, and his specialty was acceleration and propellants, I guess, and so he was trying to figure out how the craft propelled itself through space. And he said that in 1989 he came out with George Knapp and said that they showed him a element 115, which wasn't yet discovered in 1989. It was later discovered by a group of Russian scientists, and they only were able to make 4 atoms of it, and this was in 2003 that they discovered it. So in 1989, nobody had ever even heard of element 115. So that's one point of his story that is pretty wild. He also came out and claimed that in order to get into the base, they had these hand scanners that would use a ultra bright light to scan the hand bones in your hand, and because every person's hands are unique, and that technology was later declassified. I think in the late 2000s, and so his story was that he was shown a craft, and they had 9 of them. He said a few were discovered through archaeology, and so apparently they had been on the Earth and were dug up. And one I think he said that was a crash that was retrieved, and that's the one that he had access to. And he also took out his friends and showed them when they would do test flights with these craft, and he actually videotaped it with his friends. And of course back then they had crappy cameras, and so all it showed is some lights zooming around in the sky. So but his story is one of the most believable stories I think there are in ufologists and all the UFO sightings that there have been, because not only did element 115 later get discovered, the hand scanners later were declassified, and also his name was in Los Alamos base as an employee and in a old work log, like all the people that worked there, in an old log. They found that, but he alleged got a degree in propulsion from MIT, but all his records were erased at MIT. A few people that went to MIT also said that he did go there, but all of his records magically got washed and they couldn't find his records. But he later got fired, which he believes it was because his phone was tapped, and the military found out that his wife was having an affair. So they went ahead and let him go because they can't have anybody on something that sensitive being compromised in any way. And they didn't want him going off the deep end or something. So they fired him before he even knew his wife was having an affair. And so with element 115, he says, when element 115 is exposed to radiation, it produces its own gravitational field, which can make gravity, and it can also turn to anti-gravity. So that's how he said these crafts are being pushed through space. It's basically a bubble that surrounds the craft that the element 115 produces, a gravitational bubble around the UFO, and basically that's how they can do 90-degree turns at like 25,000 miles per hour, because inertia isn't a concept when they have their own gravitational field. So everything inside that bubble has its own gravitational field. So if it can turn at 90 degrees, and the beings inside the craft don't feel anything because it has its own gravitation. And so that's how it can go at incredible speeds and do all the things it does. But so he says that they have been around for around 10,000 years or more. He said his estimation is that their technology is approximately maybe 50,000 years more advanced than ours. And so the one craft that they showed him, he thinks was the Roswell crash craft. And one of those beings actually survived for a few years. It crashed in 1947. They named it EB, Extraterrestrial Biological Entity. And its name was EB. They believe it was like a male, and it lived until 1952 when it died. But apparently during the years it was alive, it told humans and military personnel a plethora of information about what they've come to realize about the universe and consciousness and everything else. But yeah, so that's the Bob Lazar story in a nutshell. And I think it's quite incredible that Bob Lazar knew all these things before they even came out, before element 115 was discovered. And he mentioned a lot of things that were discovered later, like 20 years after he came out and went public with it. So yeah, that's the Bob Lazar story. I hope y'all enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. Have a good night.